Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. It is week 6 in the CFL. Ian Cameron with you. This will be a quick show this week. I don't get it why 3 teams have to be on a bye week on the same week, but I've stopped figuring out a lot of what the CFL tries to do on a regular basis. But here we are with 3 teams this week on a bye week in a 9-team league. Make that make sense. But here we are with Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, all on a bye week this week, which means we have just 3 games instead of the normal 4 to talk about here in week 6 in the CFL. Let's jump right into it. We will begin with Friday night football tonight. And because there's only 3 games, the first game of the week is a Friday night game instead of a Thursday night game. But it is a good one, and it is a fascinating one. The Calgary Stampeders taking on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Saskatchewan, 5.5-point home favorites, 53 the total. In this game. It was a phenomenal week 5 last week for yours truly. A great week overall. A lot of winners. We had the Winnipeg-Calgary over the total for the game last Thursday. That hit. Calgary team total over. We had the Ticats on Friday night. We did lose with a small bet on Montreal, but it was the smallest bet of the week. And then I think the best part of the week was the over trifecta. We mentioned it last week. Bet both team totals over in the Ottawa-Edmonton game and the full game over. We cashed all of those. It was a huge winning week in the CFL, profitable on the year, 35 units of profit the last 2 years combined in the CFL. So again, if you want to get on board with just the subscriptions, you know where to find it at Bobano Bets, Twitter X. All the links to the subscription options are posted there at either Dub Club, SoBet, or Odd Shopper. The 3 platforms where you can find all my subscription stuff. Make sure you check that out if you want to get on board. It's been a great CFL season so far. As for Calgary, Saskatchewan, great game. Calgary is a team that I've had to upgrade in my power ratings. There's no doubt. What they've been able to do so far, this 3-1 start, straight up and against the spread. Their only loss was against Ottawa in that game that was a deluge with heavy rain, strong winds. They played it in brutal weather conditions, and that's the only loss for Calgary. So you wonder, did Ottawa beat them or did the weather beat them? But nevertheless, that's their only loss. Their other 3 games, they beat Hamilton at home 38-26, a win that's looking better with Hamilton winning 2 in a row. They beat Toronto 29-19 on the road. And then, of course, last week in very impressive fashion, coming off a bye week, they smacked down the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 37-16. A solid performance from Vernon Adams, throwing the ball, Dedrick Mills running it. But more importantly, a very impressive performance from a defense that was awful last year for Calgary, that had 75% roster turnover on the defensive side of the football going into this year, and yet they were able to shut down Winnipeg, and they were able to get 2 pick sixes against Zach Collaros last week in that victory. So it's been impressive stuff to witness from the Calgary defense. Now, I do still have concerns about their run defense. That, to me, is still the area of concern at times with this Stampeders defense. Teams have been able to run the football on them at times, and it's not going to be easy here against A.J. Ouellette with the way he's been able to run the football for the Riders in recent games. So we'll see how they fare with the run defense. Saskatchewan's coming in 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread, off a bye week as well. Worth pointing out that last year in his rookie season as head coach, Corey Mace, 2-1 straight up and against the spread off a bye week, 2 wins and covers. He did lose his last game off a bye week, but that was one where you have to put an asterisk beside it. It was the final week of the regular season, and Saskatchewan had locked up their playoff positioning already. So keep that in mind with the way that game went against this Calgary team in a game that meant something to Saskatchewan, which also came against Calgary off a bye, the second bye week they had last year. They won 37-29. Look, Calgary, I'm impressed, no doubt. But I don't love this situation coming in off the huge win against Winnipeg. They celebrated that victory like they won the Grey Cup. They even got a trophy for it because it was the quote-unquote Stampede Bowl last week. Maybe there's a little bit of they're ripe for the picking element here. A little bit of an emotional letdown or hangover. Maybe, maybe not. But you got Saskatchewan off a bye. They were able to get healthy. They've played very good football. Calgary now, it's one thing to beat a great Winnipeg team, which they did, but at home, and now you got to try to duplicate it on the road. I do worry about the run defense a little bit. The pass defense has been very good, though. I've been very impressed. They've been able to get a pass rush. That's going to be important. We know Trevor Harris, who will be back at quarterback after missing the game before the bye against BC when Jake Mayer had to start. You can get pressure on him. He's not the most mobile, but can it get there? The O-line, for Saskatchewan has been better than anticipated so far. They've been able to open up the run game. And this Riders team has been scoring points, 28 or more in all 4 games so far this season. I did take Saskatchewan's team total early in the week. It was 27.5 at -140. That price is long gone now. I think FanDuel, it's up to like -160 or 70 now. But I do think it's a Riders advantageous spot here coming off the bye. Now, there's always that worry that the bye week throws you off a little bit, but they're playing really well at the moment. And with Calgary, their only road performance this year was in Toronto against a backup quarterback, and they won 29-19. But, you're still going to have to show it to me on the road against a very good team like Saskatchewan. We'll see if they carry it over. Certainly they could, but I do think the Riders get the win and the cover. Worth noting that every straight-up winner this season in the CFL so far has also covered the point spread. So if you pick the winner, just bet them from an ATS standpoint. You've done quite well. One bet to look at, because I don't know if I'm rushing to lay 5.5. The only bet I made early in the week was over the team total for Saskatchewan when it was 27.5 at a good price. But Bet365 has Saskatchewan double result, -115, which is Riders to lead at halftime, Riders to win the game. I think that's very possible here in this matchup against Calgary. That could happen. This is another big game for Calgary to prove how good they and maybe how much better they could be. Just think it's going to be a little bit tougher here now, trying to duplicate that on the road. I didn't love the way they celebrated after that Stampede Bowl win either. They acted like they won a championship. And I do worry about that element of this game here for Calgary. And again, Saskatchewan has shown me no reason to discredit them or doubt them at this point. And like I said, and they're coming off the bye. And other than Edmonton, teams have been thriving coming off the bye week here in the CFL this season. All right, next up, we go to Saturday, a game that I'll be in attendance for, of course. The Ottawa Red Blacks and the Hamilton Ticats. Hamilton 5-point home favorites, 54.5 the total in this game. It's obviously a very high total, 55 now in some spots as well. This Hamilton offense, boy, oh boy, that's one hell of a showing last week against Toronto. Bo Levi Mitchell, and it was the Kenny Lawler show. 200 receiving yards. They shredded the Toronto secondary. Thought the O-line did a better job of giving Bo Levi Mitchell time in the pocket for those deeper routes to develop. That was critical to the success. And we know this Ottawa defense still has some question marks. I mean, you look at their results so far. They give up 31 in a loss at Saskatchewan week 1. They give up 39 points to Montreal when Davis Alexander was the starting quarterback there. They give up 12 points to Calgary. That's nothing to write home about because that was a weather game, and it completely skewed the ability for those two offenses to function at a high level with just how much rain and wind there was in that Stampeders Red Blacks game a few weeks ago. So yeah, they only gave up 12 points in their one win, but the weather had a lot to do with it. Their other games, they give up the 31, as I mentioned, to Saskatchewan, 39 points to Montreal, 29 points to Nick Arbuckle and the Argos. Now, 2 of those touchdowns were defensive and special teams touchdowns, courtesy of Derek Sluka in that crazy, amazing game he had. But they still gave up. They still allowed Toronto to move the football with Nick Arbuckle. It's concerning. And then we saw what Trey Ford and Edmonton did against this Ottawa defense last week, 39 points, and probably the best game Trey Ford's played all year. And now there's some injuries. There's some concerns in the secondary. Bob Dice talking about how the injuries and issues on defense are keeping guys around that shouldn't be on the roster anymore because they're playing with such a lack of discipline and committing too many penalties. I mean, it's not exactly what you want to see, saying how the injury issues that this team is undergoing right now is basically keeping them from cutting guys that shouldn't be here. So, yeah, there's a lot of issues right now with Ottawa. That being said, is Hamilton a team off a big rivalry win like that against Toronto that I'm excited about laying 5.5 with? The defense that's still a little bit concerning. I mean, They gave up 38 in week 1 against Calgary in a loss, 28 to Saskatchewan after that. Yes, they shut down McLeod Bethel-Thompson, but McLeod Bethel-Thompson's been shut down 2 weeks in a row since he took over at quarterback for an injured Davis Alexander. So I'm not going to get all excited about that effort from Hamilton's defense. And last week, okay, they put up 51. And yeah, were they playing some prevent defense, not as aggressive? Yeah, but still gave up 38 points. And Toronto was able to move the football for a decent chunk of that game last week. So there's enough concerns about the Ticats' ability to get stops on defense, even though I think on paper they are a better defense than last year, which isn't saying a whole lot because they were the worst defense last year in the league, or one of. But there's still enough concerns where I'm not comfortable laying points in this magnitude with Hamilton. If it was a field goal, maybe. If it was less than a field goal, close to a pick'em, maybe. But not at -5.5 am I comfortable, even as great as the offense looks. It's a high total, but I do think it still can go over the total, 54.5, 55. The bet that I like the most, and I think Hamilton has a chance to maybe go over their team total, which is in the 29.5, 30.5 range right now, when you factor in that Ottawa gave up 31 points, 29 points or more in all 4 games that were not heavily impacted by wind and rain like that Calgary game was. But I like Ottawa's team total most of all. And you can find that at 24.5 at most spots. I keep saying Dustin Brown. Drew Brown is back, who returned at quarterback for Ottawa last week against Edmonton, which means he's now played and started in 2 games this season for Ottawa. And in those 2 games, even though they lost both games, he led Ottawa's offense to 26 points against Saskatchewan in week 1, 33 points in the loss to Edmonton last week. So 26 and 33 points for Ottawa in the 2 starts for Drew Brown this year. And 26 and 33 points get you over this team total Saturday night, sitting at 24.5 here for the Ottawa Red Blacks. So I like the Ottawa team total over. I like the full game over. Those more so than Hamilton's team total. I took a piece of all 3 of those, but I got a little bit bigger percentage of my dollars and overall wager on the Red Blacks team total over, and also the full game over. The weather's supposed to be very good as of now. Saturday night in Hamilton, sunshine, not much wind. So again, looking to see a good chance. I think we're going to end up seeing some points. 8-2, by the way, for the Hamilton Ticats to the over in their last 10 games dating back to last season. So probably more points are in the offering. And here's what I would say here. I definitely think if you like Ottawa, that's at least the way I feel. They're only 1-4 straight up and against the spread. I don't know if I trust their defense to contain Bo Levi Mitchell in this potent Hamilton offense. I would rather attack the team total. I really would, because I think Ottawa can score on Hamilton. It's just a question of you don't want to be in a spot where you take +5.5 and the final score is, let's say it's 35-28 in favor of Hamilton, where Ottawa doesn't cover, but they go over their team total, because I could totally see that happening, just like last week against Edmonton, where Ottawa lost straight up and against the spread, didn't cover, but they went over their team total, and people that bet over their team total cashed a ticket. So that's the approach I would take. I feel better about Ottawa's team total over in this game if I like that side, rather than taking the +5.5 points. Maybe they do cover, but like I said, I trust Ottawa's offense a lot more at the moment than I trust their defense right now. All right, next up, it's the final game for Week 6 in the CFL. BC Lions, Edmonton Elks on Sunday night. We've got Edmonton, or actually BC rather, 2.5-point road favorites, 51 being the total in this game. One of the highlights of last week was taking Ottawa team total over, Edmonton team total over, and the full game over in the Ottawa-Edmonton game last week, and we swept the board 3-0 with those 3 bets. And I'm tempted to go back to the well with that very same thought process and approach here Sunday night with the Lions and the Elks. Teams against Edmonton this season are now 4-0 to their team total over. 4-0. All 4 teams that have played the Edmonton Elks this season have gone over their team total, including this BC Lions team in week 1 in Vancouver, as they scored 31 points in that game. And then Edmonton gives up 38 to Montreal, 36 to Winnipeg, 33 to Ottawa. I mean, every team just continues to go over their team total against Edmonton. The defense is still an issue. Now, they were a little bit better last week, but man, if your idea of better on defense, and it actually did look like a better performance, and you still give up 33 points, that means you still have some issues and a long way to go. I still worry about that secondary. And keep in mind, that was a game where Ottawa didn't attack vertically down the field as much as I thought they would or as much as I thought they should have, knowing how awful in pass coverage the Edmonton secondary has been all year. I have a feeling Nathan Rourke and the BC Lions will have a better idea to try to exploit that. And Buck Pierce will at least try to throw the ball a bit deep down the field and test this very, very suspect Edmonton secondary. So I can see Nathan Rourke's second game back from injury. It was kind of up and down for him last week, but when the game was on the line against Montreal, what a great job by Nathan Rourke. Got them into field goal range for the ageless wonder, Sean White, to kick the game-winning field goal and give the BC Lions a very much-needed win to improve to 2-3. We'll see how this one plays out. BC has owned this series, 8-1 straight up. 7-2 against the spread the last 9 head-to-head meetings over the Edmonton Elks. I think BC is very capable of going over their team total, which is currently at 26.5, 27.5 in this game. Something they were able to do, obviously, just a month ago in week 1 of the season, 31 points in a home win against this Edmonton team. And then the last time they were here in Edmonton last year in August, they scored. That was Edmonton that scored 33, but they've been able to score points. They've been able to move the football. They have scored 27 plus in 3 of the last 5 meetings against Edmonton. The offensive line is still a bit of my concern for BC, but can Edmonton take advantage of some of those O-line issues? That is a question. But I think Edmonton can score. Like, Trey Ford has definitely made improvement the last 2 weeks against Winnipeg and Ottawa, 23 against the Bombers, 39 against Ottawa last week. He's been efficient. He hasn't been making as many mistakes. And suddenly Edmonton's found a run game, and that's the important part. Javon Leake in the special teams and the kick return game, but also Javon Leake in the run game. They've even used him as receiver. And Justin Rankin, who had a big 70-yard touchdown run against Ottawa last week. The fact that Edmonton has found a ground game that's working, and that is significant because BC is absolutely decimated and ravaged along the defensive line. They already had injuries going into the game last week. They're still banged up on that D-line with multiple starters missing. And now they get the guy that was part of that brawl and fight after the BC comeback win last week against Montreal. He ends up getting suspended for the BC Lions for this game. So you're talking about already a team that is shorthanded and struggling along the defensive line. And now you see Kamoko Toure suspended 1 game for that incident at the end of the BC Montreal game. So the depletion of that D-line for the BC Lions very much concerns me here against Edmonton. Not only the Rankin and Leake running the ball, but we also have a mobile quarterback in Trey Ford to have to worry about. What if the quarterback run game eats this, shorthanded defensive lineup, which it very well could. So I think there's a pathway to Edmonton getting their share of points here in this game as well. Their team totals 23.5. I think there's a chance they can get up and over that as well. And also the full game total in that 50.5, 51 range right now. Now there can find its way over the total. That is how I would play it. Keep in mind with the weather going into this game. Chance of showers, maybe some wind, but again, it's too early to make a firm declaration on that. Let's wait and see what the weather is closer to Sunday night when this game kicks off. But I do think both teams can find their way to offensive success. There was a big early move toward Edmonton, and I would say I have not bet a single point spread this week, as you can tell. It's just I didn't love where the numbers were this week as far as the point spreads in each of the 3 games. But now that we've got BC below the key number of 3, I mean, for me at 2.5 or better, minus 2.5 or better, I could only take BC from a point spread standpoint. They got a win last week in Montreal. Edmonton winning 2 in a row. Not something they've done in bunches over the years when they've had these lean years and these multiple seasons where they've been among one of the worst teams in the league. So I don't expect to be on BC unless it really moves further and we get close to a pick 'em on BC. But I wouldn't be interested now in Edmonton below 3. I think if you got an early number on Edmonton, that's great. But now at 2.5, I lean BC the other way here in this game on Sunday night. But you can see Edmonton on offense is making inroads, making strides. There's no doubt. More balance in their offense, more productive. They're finishing drives, which is good to see. Trey Ford's making fewer mistakes. But, man, that defense still has a long way to go, as evidenced by the fact that, again, Edmonton, their last 3 games have gone over the total. And all 4 teams, I'll state this again, all 4 teams that have faced the Edmonton Elks this season have gone over their team total for the game. So team totals are 4-0 to the over this season for teams against the Edmonton Elks. And we'll see if that continues here on Sunday night. All right, there you have it. Shout out to everyone for tuning into this edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. I figured we would go with no guest this week, being that it's only 3 games on the CFL Week 6 card. But appreciate you, as always, tuning in. Let's wrap it up and give you a best bet. It was a great week last week. We had a best bet winner with Calgary Winnipeg over the total last week. Let's see if we can get you another best bet winner here for Week 6. I'm going to go to I'm always going to give you an unbiased opinion on my Hamilton Ticats. I really think Ottawa team total is a really good bet this week. Coming off the rivalry win, there's still some questions about the defense. And say what you will about Drew Brown, he's still a step up or 2 from Nick Arbuckle. And even Nick Arbuckle was chucking the football around and having some success against Hamilton last week. Now, I know some of that might have been prevent defense and playing passive with a big lead, and Hamilton was scoring on every drive and every time they had the football on offense, but it's still alarming they gave up the points and the yards that they did to Nick Arbuckle in that game. And you look at Drew Brown when he's been under center as starting quarterback for Ottawa this season in the 2 games. They scored 26 and 33 points in those 2 games. That would clear this team total and exceed it. So I like it. I think this is a really good look. I think Ottawa is going to be relatively competitive in the game against Hamilton, but I have a chock full of concerns with their defense, and I don't really want much to do with it. They got injuries in the secondary. The pass rush has, surprisingly, from the likes of Lorenzo Malden and others, not been what I thought it would be. And that's put even more pressure on a secondary that, A, has got a lot of new faces in it, B, has not played well, and C, is battling some injuries right now. So I don't know if I trust the Ottawa defense. That's why I don't love taking plus 5.5 with them, because it could be, like I said earlier, a scenario where they score their points, but they don't cover the point spread, and they lose 35-28, where they go over their team total, but they don't cover the number. I could see that happening. So I'd much rather, if I like Ottawa this week, have Ottawa's team total over rather than take them plus 5.5. And I do really like this. I think Ottawa can get 25 plus in this game against the Ticats defense. And Drew Brown should feel even better coming off his first game back from injury, more comfortable, second game now in a row. And Ottawa might get some of those injured offensive line pieces back, a couple more, including Zach Pelahos. So keep an eye on this, that he might be back along that offensive line this week for the Red Blacks. So I'm not scared to go against the team I love and the team I'm a season ticket holder of when it makes sense. And I'm going about it with the team total this week. Ottawa Red Blacks, team total, over 24.5, minus 115. That is going to be my best bet for Week 6 in the CFL. Shout out to everyone joining us. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the show. I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy CFL Week 6 and good luck. And we will be back with you again next week for another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.